Hi, everyone. Hi, Lexi.
Hello.
We're back in Cooper Levenson's Cherry Hill Squares. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. We don't have our Lisa, who's out on maternity leave, so we're more like Cherry Hill rectangles, but but we'll make it work.
Perfect. So we're going to have a quick conversation today to talk about the status of what's happening in the courts and family law matters. So why don't we just jump right into it? You've been appearing, we're all appearing virtually with the court. And have you had any trials lately? Can you tell us about what your experiences have been like?
I have. I've actually had a Zoom trial, and I actually had an in-person trial as well. And when this all started, I mean, I at least was like, how are we going to do any of this on Zoom? This is a nightmare. I actually was pleasantly surprised by the Zoom trial experience. First of all, it was a lot easier, getting a kid off to school, rushing to court with all your bags, parking, going to security. That was always sort of a mad dash in the morning, at least for me. And this is just the easiness of this was very kind of alluring, for lack of a better word. And so it actually worked out fairly well. It was also easier in terms of the evidence, because usually you'd be making 50 million copies of everything and pre-marking it and everything like that. Now, at least with this judge, what we did is we emailed all the evidence to his law clerk. Our assistant, Katie, who's wonderful, typed Exhibit A, Exhibit B on the exhibits and sent them over. And then I could just say, hey, everybody, scroll to Exhibit A and let's talk about it. And so that was pretty easy. The pitfalls that I sort of saw in it were people would get kicked off from their internet connection. So then I'd be texting my client, come back. And, somebody also, one of the parties had their camera situated in a very strange way. So it was kind of hard to see his face. So there's still a few kinks, but in general, I was actually pleasantly surprised by how it went.
And how did your client feel about it?
I think it was easy for her because she didn't have to take off work. And we also didn't have to wait. You remember the days of going to a courthouse and you're waiting and waiting for the judge to hear you because he has 5 other matters. Well, this was like, we'll call you around 9. And when they were ready for us, they called us, and it allowed me to do other things and her to not be just sitting there twiddling her thumbs in the lobby. So at first and I think a lot of attorneys were, some more than others, like this is an outrage. How am I ever supposed to do this? But honestly, it was fine. And I actually had the privilege, and it did feel like a privilege actually, to go back into the courthouse and have an in-person trial and see some of the people that we haven't seen in months. I had an in-person trial actually in October, which we had to get special permission for. And it was a domestic violence hearing, and we each had multiple witnesses, and the judge was kind enough to agree to do it. And that was interesting because for that, everybody's in masks and you're widely spaced out. And it is very hard. So much of a trial is judging credibility. It's not 100%. I feel like something is a little bit missed through the screen and judging somebody's credibility. But at least when you're doing Zoom, you can actually see someone's full face. When you're doing it in person, you're obscured by a mask. So you're judging somebody's credibility like that, which is not really easy to do. And I think leaves a little something to sort of be desired. And then you have to worry about amplifying your voice and where you stand because you have a mask.
I think one of the pitfalls that we might run into, though, in trials by Zoom is the concept of providing your evidence in advance, right? Because then you're showing your hand, and there are times, certainly in our experience, where strategically we plan with our clients how to use evidence and when to use evidence. And when we are submitting it all in advance, it takes that, I don't want to say the surprise factor, because everybody is everybody's got to be privy to the evidence that you use, but it certainly does allow for the other side to pregame and pre-understand what we're going to be presenting. So I agree with you on the credibility issue and those credibility calls, and the fact that depending upon where your client is, I have had clients appear via Zoom in a mask because the location they're appearing from is a public location that they have to wear a mask. So I've certainly encountered that issue when appearing with clients, but I agree that the covering of someone's face does impact how we are perceiving their answers, how the court perceives their answers, And I can imagine that it's difficult for judges to make credibility calls. But as we segue into other aspects of what we're doing with the court, I certainly have, like you, done a lot of appearances with clients that occur by phone, or particularly in the beginning of the pandemic, before the court was up on Zoom and utilizing Zoom. And interestingly, I did find that the courts were making credibility findings, just based on a client's tone of voice, level of participation, their ability to answer questions in clear and concise manners. So yes, visibly, I think there's an issue, but I think there's also a way to help clients be prepared to present themselves in a way that allows the court to make those observations that we need them to make in an effective way, even if it's behind a mask, or as sometimes we have happened, just audio. Yesterday, I had an adversary's client who'd only appear by audio because we couldn't get the video feed to work, but we had to just keep it moving.
And, actually, when this all started, I think we were all very reluctant, or at least I was very reluctant to change anything. I'm like, I want my old life back. This is, but now that this has been almost a year, this has been so good for clients, really, in generally speaking. Number one, it's knocked down any geographical barriers that we might have had. A year ago, if somebody called from Sussex County and said, I really want you to represent me, I'd say, hey, I'd love to, but it's not cost effective for you. If I have to travel up there, that's 4 hours of me sitting in the car, because we bill for our time. That's how attorneys bill. And now, I'm sure you're the same. I mean, fine. You want to represent somebody in Passaic, Sussex, faraway lands in New Jersey to us down here, then that's fine. And also, it's such a cost saving measure. I mean, we would have judges, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I had a case in Bergen County, and I said, can I please appear by phone? It was a conference that would have taken 5 minutes, and I probably did take 5 minutes. Nope, you and your client have to be here. And that type of thing is done now. And I think it's probably done forever. I think people have seen the light, and the judges have seen the light, that that's not really fair to the attorneys or to the clients to make them spend that kind of money just to haze everybody and make them come in person. And now I think those in-person appearances for procedural things like conferences, I think that is going to be the rule as opposed to the exception, which it was before. And that is a very positive thing about this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that through this experience, everybody has developed an understanding of the efficiency that the use of conferencing like this can do, and that we can accomplish the same goals, right? In my experience, when a judge was calling attorneys and clients into their courtroom, is because they wanted to get a feel for the attorney, a feel for the client, a feel for how the case was going to move forward. And yeah, it did create a burden and an expense that we perceive as perhaps unnecessary. But I think it did give the court, at times I wanted the judge to get a feel for what's going on and a feel for how the parties were, because I think in the long run, it helps us all in our moving the case through the court system, whether it's for purposes of future negotiations or settlement conferences. But yes, I think that this platform, the platform of using Zoom or one of the other virtual platforms, allows the judges to accomplish that same goal, just in a much more cost efficient and time efficient manner for everybody involved.
Let me ask you this. What have you appeared on aside from phone, Zoom, and Team? Have you done Teams?
Yes.
Microsoft Teams. Have you appeared on any other platforms than that?
There are a couple of other platforms out there that I have appeared on. They're not coming to mind right now, but yeah, I think that right before any hearing, or I think long before hearings where there is a management system that's different, I've received notice, and I've gotten the opportunity from the court clerk to look into the application. They verify that everybody has access to it. I certainly have had to do a lot of coaching with clients. Interestingly, I appeared recently and the other lawyer wasn't following the coaching, but just coaching simple things like, you need to appear without a hat on, because if you were in a courtroom, you'd have to take off a hat.
Yes.
You got to spit your gum out. You can't have gum in your mouth while you're talking and sitting in the hall with the court. How about you stay still? You don't walk around. You have, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I've also, I think we've talked about it before, experienced the court telling me that I couldn't be in transit, that any
Yes, that's right.
I'm doing I can't even appear in my vehicle because there's a risk that I am in transit. So I've also spent some time with clients just doing the regular prep that we've always done before about appearing in a courtroom, and trying to transition that to their appearance virtually, and the importance of focusing, even just to give the court their full attention so that the judge is confident that they are taking the matter seriously.
And you know, it's interesting. I forgot to mention when I was talking about trials, the logistical issues, just like you said about being in the car. I have clients that I'm sure you do too, that for conference and stuff will go to the car so that you can get away from the kids if they're arguing, if they're watching a custody motion. Like you don't want your other family members necessarily involved. But one of the things that I had with that trial that I actually did in person was it initially was going to be via Zoom. And one of the questions is, how do we sequester the witnesses that are living in the same house? And the judge, we had started the trial. It was kind of fits and starts. We decided we were going to do it in person, but initially the judge said, "All right, you know, you guys live together. You're going to have to go into another room where you can't hear the testimony. You're going to have to be all set up in your one room, and this one set up, and never the two shall meet." And it does make you wonder, not in that case really, but it does make you wonder in general if somebody is, really just around the corner with a cup to the door, because you can't really police that. And so that's another kind of interesting thing that I didn't think about experiencing
Right.
during this.
And I
Is the
think that with the evolution, like our offices have opened, and we can certainly reserve conference rooms. With the evolution of that, of our offices kind of reopening, but the courts remaining closed to in-person appearances for these reasons of mass gatherings, I think that it is likely that the court will start to put the onus on us as attorneys to schedule within our office the
Yeah.
space, require us to have our clients come in, and similar to when you are dealing with depositions, to have there be just rules of the game that we all as officers of the court have to adhere to. So, all right, I don't want us to go too
Yes.
long, but I think that this is some valuable information for us to share, and I'm glad that we're able to have our conversation, and we'll continue to check in on Cherry Hill Squares and bring some guests
Yes. And the
going.
takeaway for everybody is, at least in my opinion, weighing everything, the virtual trials, hearings, conferences has generally been a good thing for clients, for us. It's okay. We're fully up and running. We do everything virtually with very few limited in-person appearances allowed, but still business is being done as usual now. So
yeah, I would say that's particular in the family law arena.
Yeah.
The court has done an amazing job of coming up to speed. We
Yeah,
previously couldn't electronically file, and the fact that we're able now to have transitioned to electronic filing has really made an awesome difference in our practice.
Completely agree. So anyway, for anyone who actually watched through to the end, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, and we'll see you all soon.
All right.